All right. Hey, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, we are back taking a look at the tropics. Today is Sunday, September 1st, 2019, and we remain fixed on Major Hurricane Dorian that has become a absolutely catastrophically powerful Category 5 hurricane. The new Hurricane Center advisory is 11 a.m. has the winds up to 180 miles an hour. Dorian has been undergoing another period of intensification this morning. We have now what we call the stadium eye is opened up, and this thing is at its peak. It is a absolute force of nature, and it is going to be an absolute hell on earth today for um, Great Abaco and Grand Bahama Islands later tonight as the system does make its approach to the northwestern Bahamas, which will undoubtedly, unquestionably be the worst storm in their entire history in the northwestern Bahamas. These islands have never taken a storm like this, as far as we know, since any people have lived there. So obviously, the first concern would be for these people. It will be unlike anything they've ever seen or experienced in their entire lifetimes and likely never will again. So anyway, that is kind of the thing for the Bahamas piece. Let's look at the National Hurricane Center's 11 a.m. advisory. Let's kind of get you in the big details here this morning. We do have the new track remains mostly unchanged. The Hurricane Center, with all the wobbles east yesterday and then the wobbles west last night through this morning, the Hurricane Center stayed pretty much pat because their track was always a hair west of what some of the models were saying. And the Hurricane Center likes to kind of let things play out because they're smart and they don't fall in love with one model trend. And I wish that some of the other outlets would do the same because we're still looking at potential serious impacts to the Florida coastline here going into early next week. So what does this look like right now? Well, the biggest thing is now the watches and warnings are up, guys. We do now have hurricane watches up. That's the biggest news. We have them from Deerfield Beach, which is just south of Boca Raton, all the way up to just north of Cape Canaveral, up as Sebastian Inlet. And then we have those tropical storm watches from yesterday have now become warnings for most of the south central Florida coastline. And then we also have tropical storm watches up for areas just a hair south of where those end, and then parts of Okeechobee, Lake Okeechobee, or all of Lake Okeechobee is now under a tropical storm watch. So we do have these watches in effect again, guys. Watches are conditions are possible within 48 hours. Anyone in the pink could be expecting hurricane conditions within 48 hours. And also note, hurricane watches go along with the tropical storm warning. So a tropical storm warning means you are going to get tropical storm conditions within 24 hours. Hurricane watch means you also could potentially see hurricane conditions. These overlap; they don't end. So if you're under a tropical storm warning, you can also be under a hurricane watch and still be expected to get hurricane conditions. And Dorian can still bring bona fide hurricane conditions to major hurricane conditions to parts of the east coast of Florida going into the next few days. So please, if you slept on this storm or you thought it was just going to miss because we saw some model shifts yesterday, please do not think you are completely out of the woods. If you are in this cone, you can still experience hurricane to major hurricane impacts. I just there's no other way I can possibly jump up and down the table and stress that enough. This storm is not over for Florida. We're not in the clear. We are not out of the woods, and anyone that tells you that is wrong. I hope that's as clear as I can make it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get back to the satellite presentation of Dorian here this early this morning or late this morning. Again, that eye is bearing down on Great Abaco Island right here in the central part, and it's just going to be an absolute just absolute hell on earth. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. That is a wind gust over 200 miles an hour, which is EF4 tornado intensity. So there's no sparing him at this point. It's gonna hit him, and just gotta hope they're either off the island or ready. That's all you can do. Looking at the satellite presentation of Dorian, some other factors, we are watching some real-time stuff. We're seeing this still this more northerly latitude gain is becoming a little more apparent today. We're watching for weaknesses to Dorian's north that will signal that the high pressure is going to relax and allow Dorian to begin to turn north. As far as us in Florida, we want to see this thing slow down. Unfortunately, not for these people because they're just going to get beaten up even longer. But at this point, every mile and every hour that Dorian continues to track west or due west, which it still is, it is the mean motion is just basically a due west track, puts this cone closer and closer and closer back towards Florida, or the center of where we think that the most likely track is. So we're watching this real time stuff today. We can see some clues in the atmosphere as far as what we're looking for, looking at the visible satellite imagery, which is a little bit different band that we can actually see some more cloud features. We can see the high pressure over Dorian is pretty much like a banana shape today. It's kind of got this look to it where there's two different high pressure cells, one a bit more upper levels over Florida, and then a more general high pressure flow to today, which is still pushing Dorian on this westerly or west northwest track. However, at some point, this high pressure over Florida will begin to block Dorian. It's going to be kind of the point where Dorian is going to slow down, and we will see that slowdown occur. If it's not already occurring, it's going to be occurring pretty imminently. And then what happens from there depends on the strength of our two troughs. We have a very weak trough over the Gulf Coast this morning in the upper levels that's producing some of this cloudiness, and it's also going to be moving this direction. If it breaks down this high first, and then that will allow Dorian to come a bit even further west and could put that more westerly side of the cone on notice. If it kind of holds off or doesn't do too much, then we're watching this trough to the north that will slide in this afternoon and begin to break the high pressure down to Dorian's north, which will then allow Dorian to kind of find a weakness and turn to the north. So that's kind of the simple scenario. There's a bit more to it than that, and there's a lot of small time features we'll watch. We'll begin to see this afternoon, especially like water vapor and visible. You'll begin to see clouds beginning to pack in this region. You'll see Dorian's clouds begin to hit kind of an invisible wall in the atmosphere, and we'll be able to kind of start to micromanage where we believe that stall will occur. But it's very important that if it's any latitude gains in here or where exactly the stall occurs when it turns north could be huge for the Florida Peninsula. So that's kind of the intensity and track thing, guys. Intensity wise, again, 180 mile an hour sustained wind, category 5 monster. It will pretty much wind down from here. The interaction with the islands and the slow movement will cause upwelling and land interaction, although limited because they're islands. They're not like interacting with an actual continental landmass. But the combination of, some drier air will eventually work into it, some wind shear will work into it, eye wall replacement cycles. Everything tells us that Dorian is likely on its way down from here, and this is probably the peak. But you are peaking from an outrageous peak, and to try to get down from 180 mile an hour winds just means everyone else, gets it longer. So that's kind of the forecast intensity on the way down once again, but still it's a lot of energy to wind down, folks. This is again the upper level map that kind of shows what I'm talking about. Again, that high pressure cell on the streamlines here over Florida, and then the more general high pressure kind of bridge back out this way. So this weak trough here, if it breaks down first, then we've got Dorian creeping closer. If this trough gets here first and wins out, the bigger, stronger, deeper trough that's producing the thunderstorms today over the high river valley. If this comes across in time, we break this side of the high down first, and then we just kind of have we have Dorian's escape route unlocked. So until those things happen, we're just kind of watching this thing move west, and every hour and every minute it moves west is a little more concerning for the state of Florida. So that's kind of the track thing. Let's show you a bit of a different thing here and show you kind of what this could possibly look like. So this is going to be the GFS model from 06Z. It's on the westward side of the Hurricane Center's forecast cone. It's not super, super west, but it's kind of what I think could be a little more of an expected outcome. So what we're going to see here, this is Sunday. I got this set to Sunday evening right now at 9 p.m. You can see the times here near the bottom of your screen are indicating the timelines. And we're just going to move this across to give you a general idea. So by Sunday evening, we're still talking about the system being in the Bahamas. Let's go ahead and go to about 5 a.m. on Monday. So just before sunrise on Monday, we began to see Dorian gaining some northern latitude. But once again, if it's here or here or here, it's a massive difference, and it's not a big difference, but it's a massive difference in terms of the forecast. So 6 a.m. on Monday, we're still good in Florida here, but as we go into noon or so, we could be seeing those tropical storm conditions going downhill quickly through parts of Palm Beach to Palm Bay, and Vero Beach, Port St. Lucie, Melbourne area getting involved. And then by 5 p.m. on Monday, we do see the tropical storm conditions are continuing to push in on shore of Florida. But again, Monday is still mostly south central Florida, up north and stuff. We're still looking okay. But then going into Tuesday, overnight Monday into Tuesday morning, we now have sustained heavy tropical storm conditions along the southeast central coast, and we also have potential for hurricane force conditions right along the immediate beaches if this track were to hold straight on. But again, I caution you, if I took this core of winds right here and I shipped it 20 miles over shore, we're talking about major hurricane conditions for this area. So massive disparity in what we could still be experiencing. Same thing as we move the model further north, we go into Tuesday at 1 p.m. So this is middle of the afternoon on Tuesday. Heavy tropical storm to hurricane conditions occurring around and south of Cape Canaveral down to about Vero Beach. And then by Tuesday evening, about 8 o'clock in the evening, you see how the system's crept even closer, and now we're getting full on hurricane conditions in this region from Daytona Beach southward to about Vero Beach. But then that more northerly track can take over and then the storm moves up towards Jacksonville, where Jacksonville will be getting a tropical storm for sure, and then the beaches could be experiencing this possible hurricane conditions starting Wednesday evening, and then by 8 a.m. Wednesday on sunrise, some of the worst weather is impacting the first coast up here, and then by 1 p.m. we begin to see conditions improve, and then by Wednesday night, conditions have significantly improved for the Florida coastline, and this is where the Carolinas and Savannah and Beaufort and Charleston and so on and so forth will be going through the same thing. So this has a potential, guys, to rake the entire coastline with significant tropical storm force winds and the potential for hurricane force conditions if it gets any closer. And Dorian will be weakening on this track, but I caution you, as it comes out of the Bahamas, it could still be a Category 4 hurricane. And it could be a Category 3 hurricane as it approaches the Florida coastline. A lot northern Florida coastline. A lot of people say, "Oh, is this like Matthew or Irma?" And it's like, yeah, but it could also be much worse than Matthew because it's a much more intense hurricane. Matthew was a bigger hurricane with a bigger wind field, but Matthew is also a weaker hurricane as it passed. So there's competing factors there for storm comparison. That's why I don't like to do that too much. So we'll see the trends throughout the day today. I might try to make a little more specific area forecast tonight, maybe for like I'll break it down by South Central Florida, and then maybe like North Florida from Canaveral to to the border or something. I'll try to do that, but we'll just have to see how it plays out throughout the day. So hopefully it gives you some idea of what we're expecting. Again, guys, outrageously powerful Category 5 hurricane coming up the coast. It will be weakening, but it will be a serious impact to Florida. There are scenarios that some models carry where it's still significantly out to sea, which is just light tropical storm impacts along the coastline, and it stays out of our hair. And then there are also solutions that the GFS has, other models have, that either landfall the hurricane in south central Florida and rake the coast, or bring it within 20, 25 miles of the coast, which would give us those full on hurricane impacts. So, a lot more to come, a lot more to track, and a lot more to look at. We'll be watching real time stuff throughout the day, and we'll just have to kind of go from there, guys. So, that's what I got for you this morning. As always, appreciate you watching. Stay vigilant, stay patient, and stay safe most of all. And have a good one, and we'll talk soon.